the cutting edge of anomaly research, you are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, D.W. Gannett.
Well, hi, and welcome to episode 134 of The Evidence. This is your buddy Dave, over at Mars X3D. And we're the only channel of its kind on YouTube. There are some channels who present X3D now and then, but this is strictly an X3D channel where you learn a very simple viewing technique that turns your computer monitor into a gigantic Viewmaster. It's a lot of fun. Most people can do it in about 2 minutes. So click that link down below and join the thousands of us who regularly meet in full 3D on the surface of Mars. By way of one of our viewers and friend, Rusty Hawthorne, he alerted me to an article on, let's see, what's the name of that? Hungatonga. Hungatonga. Volcano that erupted back in January of this year, and it was a submarine volcano, and it ejected a tremendous amount of water vapor because it was under the ocean, 36 miles up into the stratosphere. So there's been just a tremendous amount of water vapor added to the Earth's atmosphere, and the scientists are getting concerned because there's very significant cooling taking place. Well, what happened to global warming? Now it's global cooling. Point of the matter is that probably Old Man Winter grew a set of teeth this year, so I hope you're well prepared with auxiliary forms of heat as the fuel prices climb ever higher and higher. And you know, it's funny, Murphy lives in this world. Every time I start to record, well, the lawn guys show up, and of course my wife, who's a concert pianist, is preparing for a concert, and so you may hear some mowing and some piano in the background today, and I'm sure you'll forgive me that slight lapse in recording etiquette. But hey, we're coming from the Sunrise Command in our 4th month now, and weather's starting to turn, it's getting cool. Fall is already here up in the sunny Northeast, and but you know, one of these days soon we'll be getting back down to the regular base of operations and begin our live hangs once again, and I look forward to that. In the meantime, let's go ahead and jump into some of the amazing finds that we have this week. I know you want to get right to the anomalies, but you know, OOGIs, objects of geological interest, for those of you new to the channel. OOGIs are really unique formations, with many of them being so strange that they may well be badly eroded or broken remnants of artifacts. Here's one pointed out by my friend, Mary Conceição Coelho. And by the way, you'll want to check out Mary's Facebook forum, as above, so below. There's a link down below. What are we supposed to make of this? It's got that circular piece on the left side, then 2 pieces roughly the same size and shape, perfectly parallel to each other. On a planet that's covered with broken sedimentary rock, it's likely to be geological in nature, so we'll just call this an OOGI for now. Here's another OOGI I ran across in 3560. With all those right angles and straight lines and other little details, I'm tempted to call this carving that's all over this thing, but it's probably just an eroded chunk of rock. The first thing I thought of when I found this was, oh look, an OOGI bass. Check out this largemouth bass. Maybe some of you can see what I'm talking about. Sarah Runcie stays busy finding cool stuff, and here's one she shared with us just a couple of days ago. Sometimes Nev will create a GMAC from both color and black and white ChemCam images, so that's why you're seeing kind of a patchwork here. It's hard not to look at this and not think of something mechanical or electronic. I mean, look at all those assorted non-fractal shapes and what looks like knobs arranged in patterns. For my Iowa friends out there, look at all them little squiggly things and them cute little buttons. This reminds me of a walkie-talkie, albeit a pretty big one, maybe 2 or 3 feet long, because of its location, or what we call its geological context. I'm going to dial it back a notch and leave this one as an oogie. Here's another ChemCam image created by Neville Thompson, and this one's a twofer. Over on the left, what I'm calling an architectural oogie, and on the right, a projecting cylinder that you can see even in this context view. Here we go. That beautifully perfect right angle really jumps out at you, doesn't it? Here again, as we examine the geological context, it's entirely possible that this is simply a broken off chunk of sedimentary rock. If I had found this as an erratic, that it's something that's out of geological context, I'd be very tempted to call it an artifact. But alas, poor Dave and his shattered confirmation bias. We'll wipe away a tear and call it an oogie as we move on. This one's a different matter. That really does seem to be a cylinder projecting from the surrounding stone, and that curvy formation in front of it seems pretty suspicious too. This seems totally out of character with the surrounding geology. So let's take a closer look. That's really a nice cylinder, and it even has a bit of a metallic shine along the top. While there aren't enough hardcore non-fractals to lock this one in as an artifact, it definitely makes it into the artifact candidate territory. This one reminded me of the classic cylinder found in Curiosity 1264. This one was pointed out years ago by Jim Hopton, one of the many researchers who tend to step on stage for a while and then fade away a little while later. Nevertheless, it is a classic find and totally qualifies as an artifact. Neil Spence is a brilliant image analyst who's been out of the mix for a little while due to some transformations taking place in his life. He'll be back soon, doing what he loves most, creating gorgeous GMACs. But we definitely miss him until that lucky day. Meanwhile, someone pointed out this interesting pair in Neil's GMAC of Percy 423. That's a beautiful sphere, isn't it? It's got that metallic shine, which it might just be the light, but it's interesting to me how perfect this sphere is. Now, bear in mind that the so-called Martian blueberries, tiny balls of hematite that form on the Martian surface, these things are found everywhere. You can find a bunch of them just off to the left in this image, but they generally get no bigger than 1 inch to 1.5 inches in diameter. This one's between 4 and 5 inches across. So, is it an artifact? Maybe. Take a look at the rock just behind it and to the right. Did you notice this number 7 lying on its side? I work for a couple of years with an engineering contractor down at Redstone Arsenal, and all the engineers and science guys routinely put a slash through the stem of their 7s, like you see here. That's to keep it from being confused, I guess, with another number or maybe a letter, and it's the kind of precision thing that engineers just love. Now maybe this is just a trick of light and shadow, and maybe that sphere is just an unusually large blueberry. When that element of doubt creeps in, we call him an artifact candidate. But there's more to see in this GMAC. There's something right at the top of this context view that we need to take a closer look at. I think this is marvelous. You'll think that I saturated the color, but no, this is actually what it looks like. You can see for yourself that whatever this was, whether a boulder or a chunk of metal or something else, it has been totally vitrified, its surface turned to glass by intense heat. According to plasma physicist Dr. John Brandenburg, the atmosphere of Mars is still humming with radioactive isotopes, in particular xenon-129 and krypton-80. You know what's special about those isotopes, besides the Superman thing in popular culture? They come about as a result of nuclear fusion. In other words, a very large, planet-shredding nuclear bomb. Actually, 3 of them. Dr. Brandenburg has identified 3 different blast patterns on the surface of Mars, and according to his calculations, the largest of the devices was the size of the Empire State Building, and it was deployed from orbit. Try to wrap your mind around the implications of the science here. I'll put a link to Dr. Brandenburg's milestone book, Death on Mars, The Discovery of a Planetary Nuclear Massacre. I guarantee it'll blow your mind if you ever read it. This beautiful GMAC by Nev T led researcher Martine Graney to a very interesting find just a couple days ago. Martine's find is on the left there, but before we dive into it, I wanted to also point out that nice cube and that very suspicious-looking formation on the right. You can see a cross-like formation on the right side of the rock, at least 3 equal arms with a circular center. There's the start of a 4th arm going down, but it's not very distinct. Here's the thing, though. How is it that the vertical arm not only goes up, crossing the horizontal bedding planes of the rock, but also has parallel outlines, as do the others? That shouldn't happen, at least not in nature. As we look at earthly analogs, we find that the ancient Byzantine cross is very similar in structure. And the ancient Celtic cross is even closer in appearance to what we're finding here. I'd say we have a solid artifact candidate in this one. This is one of those wide panorama shots that NASA puts together. I processed it as a hyper stereo, that is, as if you were a giant with your eyes 100 feet apart. That makes the whole scene appear as a model and also makes it easier to see the panorama. What we're interested in is that tiny area inside the green target, probably a mile to a mile and a half from the camera. As you focus your eyes inside the white box, you can see what seems to be a medieval fortress with multiple levels, what might be arches or openings, and a couple of towers. My particular interest is inside the circle. We're going to zoom all the way in just a moment, so it'll be very blurry, but there are some very interesting details there that I wanted to show you. Forget about the focus or lack of it for a moment and just become aware of the shapes, the lighting, and the shadows as I point out a few things. Let's start with this 4-story domed structure, gleaming white in the sun. After all the years I've been doing this, I do not hesitate to call this an artificial structure. Then there are these 4 white buildings marching up the slope by the tower. They're all identical in their cubical shape, and they all reflect the sunlight in the same way. It's possible that this might be a small pyramid. Look at the straight line demarcating the sunlit side from the shadowed side. Whatever it is, it's artificial. This corner structure is clearly non-fractal, with a perfect 90-degree angle that's easy to see despite the blurry magnification. But now, look very closely in the shaded portion. Do you see the square, lighter colored divisions cutting the structure up into big cubes? Here I've drawn lines over the divisions so maybe you can see them a bit better. This entire segment of Martine's fortress is, in my opinion, so clearly artificial that it stands alone from the rest of the fortress. The portion Martine pointed out in her post is almost certainly artificial, but there's a slight chance it could be geological in origin as well. But this corner section we just looked at off to the right clinches the deal, at least for me. This is an artifact, an artificial structure erected by intelligent agency. We'll wrap things up with a terrific find by my colleague, San Kotviks. This is taken from Nev's GMAC of Percy 388, and you can see our target way off in the distance. Can you say artificial? Sure you can. Look at the cylindrical shape, the even black lines, and what seems to be a metallic glint. And I know what y'all are thinking. R2D2, right? These aren't the droids we're looking for, are they? Later on, we may get crystal clear close-ups of whatever this is if Percy moves a bit closer, and it may turn out to be simply a smooth boulder catching the sun a certain way. But until then, I'm giving in to my confirmation bias and calling this an artifact. Well, that's it, and a little longer than usual, but also the episodes have been a little further apart this summer. Hey, be sure to give some love to Alan Walker over at Mars the Second Genesis, and Jimmy Roberts over at The Real Jimmy Roberts 1. Both of these researchers do present X3D on an occasional basis, and their channels are worth checking out. There are links down below. Many thanks to to the supporters, the proud weirdos, first class, who are keeping us afloat at the time, click that join button. Find out how easy it is to join the elite group. For all you proud weirdos out there, you know who you are. Stay safe and stay weird. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. Be well.